Hello, my name is Gabby Richardson, and you are listening to The Nexus of Narratives, where we use stories to bring people together across belief systems. New episodes are released every Monday on your favorite podcast platform, where I have a conversation with a guest about an obstacle that they faced in their life that invited them to take a look at their beliefs, whether about themselves or about the world around them. We talk about how those beliefs were formed and how formative moments shape how we interact with the world. The Nexus of Narratives is what we will uncover through this story exploration. It's the common thread that unites all of us, no matter what our beliefs are. If you are an avid podcast listener, you know the deal. Please take a moment on the platform where you are listening to rate, follow, and review. Those little acts go a long way in ensuring that this important work reaches more people. Instead of doom scrolling on social media, follow the Nexus of Narratives to add some connection to your social feed. Check the show notes for links to follow the Nexus of Narratives on social media, access bonus content on Patreon, connect with me, connect with today's guest, and see any content warnings. All right, enjoy this story. Hi, welcome to the Nexus of Narratives. I am Gabby Richardson, and I am so grateful to share space today with Dr. George Ackerman. And you are here with me after a long time of planning, and when you reached out to share more information on Parkinson's and raise awareness through different platforms, you didn't know at the time that we shared this connection of having lost someone near and dear to us to complications with Parkinson's. And prior to the current trajectory of my career, past position I was in was also in the Parkinson's space and working on helping people live well today with Parkinson's. So I'm really excited for this overlap that we have. I'm so grateful for the work that you do in raising awareness for people with Parkinson's, and just so excited to see where our conversation takes us today.
Thanks for your time, and to all the audience. It means the world to me and my family. So I look forward to our conversation. But like I always kind of say in a funny way, when the lights, camera, and paparazzi leave tonight, we have to continue this conversation because until there's a cure, it's really not over. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The journey is constant. It's a constant journey, no matter what the circumstance is. And so if you were to briefly introduce yourself, what might you say?
The only reason I am the man I am today and the success I've had in life is due to my mother's sacrifice. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Currently, I'm in Florida, but I sought and entered the world probably due to growing up in New York, but in law enforcement. I'm a police officer reserve now and an attorney in Florida and Washington. And I have a PhD also in criminal justice. So my whole life I've dedicated to more of the area of victims of crime. I feel individuals out there often neglected by the criminal justice system needed a voice. And that's really where I dedicated my life to until, unfortunately, my mother's Parkinson's disease really kind of hit us hard and out of nowhere as it progressed quickly. And that's when my life really shifted to caregiver. And then sadly, she passed on 1/1/2020 after battling it for 15 years. And today I advocate in her memory, but for all those still battling Parkinson's today.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And really tremendous and interesting, the alignment of being an advocate for people who seem to have their voices silenced in some kind of a way, that alignment of how you've shown up in your life. And let's dive straight into it. What story are you here to share today with us?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, again, it's really an honor to be here. If we even reach one person today in the world that feels alone, then we've done something to change the world for the better. I often felt alone as a caregiver. I didn't know who to turn to. There's no training you can ever take to be prepared, nor do many even have to encounter this. Parkinson disease, as you know, affects, I think, a lot more, but around 1 million people in the U.S. And it might not be a lot, but it is to the families. And then it starts multiplying because it's not really a million. Now it's 10 million because it affects the caregivers, the families, those diagnosed. And now, if you've been watching the news, it's becoming a little bit more, and I don't want to say popular because it's not what we want, but more awareness due to big time celebrities such as Brett Favre announcing he has Parkinson's, Bernie Kosar, and even the discussion that now professional football could cause that Parkinson. So a lot more discussion. Even Ryan Reynolds, the famous actor, just spoke out how his father dealt with delusions and hallucinations. And that's where my journey in a way began as a caregiver. My mother had Parkinson's for 7 years before I even knew much. She said she had Parkinson's and I didn't even know it was actually a disease. We didn't know much because it didn't affect her. She was able to live, or not visibly a lot. She was able to live independently for 7 years, but one day she went for a special trial and changed all of our lives. We were hoping it would have helped her. She came back, and I don't know if they drastically changed her medications too much, but I got a call 4 a.m. to rush over to her home. And I'm prepared in law enforcement and emergency response, enough for your own mother in this situation. She had been moving her furniture out of her home at 4 a.m. I approached her and said, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And she said there were Nazis inside her home that were going to harm her. And I was kind of in shock because I obviously knew there weren't and she was safe, but I never heard of delusions and hallucinations. And those are sometimes, not everybody gets this with Parkinson, but an effect due to the medications for Parkinson's. I rushed her to the hospital that night, but it was really, they said we saved her life, but it was really now the last 4 years of downhill. And I don't understand why even today, but disease progressed so rapidly and we lost her after just a few years. And as you also know, the holidays are coming, so it's probably some of the tougher times because we don't have a seat at the table anymore due to Parkinson. So many individuals, move on, which is okay. Everybody can do what they will like. But I just felt that she lost 15 years alive and possibly 15 years after she passed because she was only 69, which is too young. And I just decided that we'd start a website, TogetherForSharon.com. We don't accept money. We just accept that there are people like me out there that won't rest till there's a cure for others. And sadly, in 2024, it's shocking because, you'd be surprised. But I still get people confused, like, why would you help because you can't bring your mother back? But part of me still feels that she lives on in a way through you and your audience and everybody I meet. And that's why I do this.
Yeah, and that's really the beauty of like the term legacy is how we live on beyond our body's time on this planet, and especially through the power of sharing stories to keep that person alive and their impact on the world. So it certainly feels like a wonderful alignment for the purpose of being here on this platform right now. And so, what do you think really led you into wanting to step into this kind of care partner role to support your mother, advocate, person to keep that legacy and that voice alive?
As a caregiver, which again I never dreamt I would have to be, I felt alone. I didn't find a lot of support, but then again, there's so many issues from my mother's health to her mental state to Parkinson's to making sure she didn't fall. Just so many things I didn't plan or ever even dream of that it was almost like I always say, imagine a nail, and I'm the nail and the hammer just kept hitting me. Every time we tried to find something to help her, it just either didn't work or we were pushed to a different way. So, one thing I do with our website, TogetherForSharon.com, is just offer many resources and free support. Also, I've interviewed, for 2 years after she passed, I was still in sadness and I'm still grieving today. But I knew that, again, there were about 1 million people in the U.S., but I found out 2 years later there were 10 million people around the world with Parkinson. That kind of broke my heart a second time over and over. And when I found that, I realized it's not just about me and my mother anymore. It has to be about everybody in this fight as a family together. And I decided to start reaching out, and I've interviewed over 1,000 people around the world from England, Spain, Italy, France, Nova Scotia, even Iceland and Africa. And it's just shocking that I didn't know, and many aren't, that Parkinson does not discriminate. It affects females, males, every diverse population, and all of us equally. And some just tragically don't have that, support because of the economics or the anything culture. In Africa, I was shocked. I have a friend there now, and they joke that he's like me, but in Africa, because he advocates, he lost his mother, but they believe that in Africa, Parkinson's is witchcraft, which is horrifying because it's not. So they took his mother from him, put her in a place, and didn't allow him to see her again. And these are the reasons why we all keep talking and fighting, because we don't want this to happen to other people.
These challenges around destigmatization exist all across the world, and it's different, and it shows up differently in different areas of the world, not just Africa being the different continent and how it addresses, beliefs and stigmas around Parkinson's. And we have our own challenges here with awareness of Parkinson's. And it's extremely fascinating for me in how my beliefs around access to wellness resources and just different cultural stigmas that exist within our own communities due to access to specialized healthcare come up within the conversation, whether it be about Parkinson's or about anything else. So it's really fascinating to learn about. It's been fascinating to learn about, and there's so many resources to continue that education as well. And so I wonder if you've always found yourself as an advocate in the Parkinson's space, or advocate just in general, I suppose, or was there a shift in your beliefs about yourself to take on that role as an advocate and care partner?
Don't go anywhere just yet. We will be back with this conversation in just a moment. Thank you so much for spending your time with me here on the Nexus of Narratives. As you may know by now, it goes a long way to support the podcast by listening, following, rating, and reviewing. So if you have enjoyed the content, please take a moment to support extending the reach of this important work. While the public episodes of the Nexus of Narratives focus on the stories of our guests, how belief systems have been formed, and how to build connection, we keep the conversation going on Patreon. We've built a phenomenal community of peer connectors on Patreon who are looking to build a more compassionate world together. While I could be continuing the conversation with the guest or digesting fantastic themes with my dear friend Rowan, there is a lot of great bonus content on Patreon, including additional benefits for different tiers. Search Nexus of Narratives on Patreon or click the link in the show notes to join this exclusive community. I look forward to connecting with you there. For more information on the Nexus of Narratives, ways to listen, opportunities to connect with me, or share a story of your own, go to nexusofnarratives.org. I personally monitor that inbox, so it is a quick and simple way to connect directly with me. Whether you're a new listener or have been around for a while, I'm deeply grateful for your time and commitment to this work. Without keeping you any longer, let's get back to the story.
Yeah, I've been like that, I think, my whole life, but never affected, after you lose somebody. I never knew what Parkinson's was, so that's why I don't blame people who don't, but we need to get everybody involved. I always say the only journey that breaks my heart today is the one that I'm not aware of. I started my own show. It goes around the country for Parkinson's awareness. It's only about Parkinson, where I interview individuals like advocates, doctors. We've had famous celebrities on, which have been incredible. We even have messages from, if you go to the website, you'll see from Ozzy Osbourne's son, Jack Osbourne, and Leah Thompson, who worked with Mr. Michael J. Fox. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Fox. I've had some great opportunities, but there's so many also dark side to social media and all advocacy that I've gone through. And thankfully, we released our first book, or I did, on my mother's journey. It's called The Son's Journey, and it's available on the website now. And I also released a book called Voices of Resilience, which actually documents other journeys of people around the world advocating. And next month, or not next month, but next year, I have my next one And it's actually, I think, going to be groundbreaking. And I don't accept money for them, which has been a problem. So that's for a different show because I don't really, it's not about that. But I'm struggling with this, not in life, but it's cost. I probably, to be honest, spent about 100,000 the last few years and given it all to the Parkinson's community because it's my life's work now. Because I want, even after, not to get morbid or sad, but even on my funeral, I'm young, but on your grave tomb, you're allowed to have two pictures. And I'm putting this is the Parkinson tulip. And I just paid an extreme amount of money, but we're putting the tulip in memory of my mother, but for awareness on my gravestone. I usually don't share that, but I don't want this to stop. I would love to see, like you used to work with Cure, so we can stop all of it. Probably would go back and still remember my mother, but not have to fight as much. Even sitting here, some days my head's going to kind of not explode, but turn red from stress because I don't sleep some nights thinking about her and ways to help. But the newest book is actually on policing and Parkinson's because there's no awareness in the law enforcement field throughout the country. And I would love to, my dream is to have the word Parkinson's disease added to every academy training manual in the United States. And it's not going to be something easy and it's no money in it for anyone. But right now they list Alzheimer's and dementia, but there's no word of Parkinson's, as you are aware. And if we get to, a lot of your viewers might not know, but Parkinson's is a movement disorder. So if the individual doesn't have their medicine at the right time or just happens to be the timing, they uncontrollably sometimes have tremors, external or internal. If an officer pulls someone over and they're doing that, they think it could be a DUI or drug while driving, and it's not going to end well. So my hope is that somehow people see this higher up, even in the government, and share it because I think it's probably takes just a minute to just type the little word into their manual, and that's all. It would change the world for so many. So I think this stuff is all bigger than me, and I don't like writing books. I just do it because, shockingly, there's not, and I always challenge everyone listening, please write me. I haven't seen one book from a son who lost their mother due to Parkinson's in the world.
Wow. Yeah, it's an extremely unique position to be in, certainly. And where do you feel like your beliefs and strengths align with your support and your advocacy in the Parkinson's community?
I try to look at my career and try to use that. Like I'm an attorney, and we're doing also a book on the law. There are people with Parkinson's who have actually been discharged, unlawfully because of their disease, and they don't even realize they have specific rights under the Constitution and specific, different federal laws that can protect them. So I do feel responsibly as an attorney who took an oath to give back and make sure people are protected their rights. Same thing in policing. I heard, I just imagine somebody pulls, even me, I know what Parkinson's, at least I know what it can do to someone. Imagine pulling someone over at 10 at night, it's dark, you're not really sure. Obviously, I care about officer safety, but, you don't want to see guns drawn and a shooting when it could really be de-escalated if you just heard of the word Parkinson. Of course, there's so many things out there. I don't expect police to know everything, but if they just know the word, could change someone and save someone, both the officer and our individual Parkinson's life forever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so extremely important to raise awareness. And I think your ambition here is wonderful, especially when people's lives are at stake. So to go back a bit, I'm wondering if you could share a specific memory about a time that you faced your own beliefs, whether around your mom's diagnosis or around being a care partner.
Yeah, I mean, we never even had this talk or conversation. She had it for 7 years, and I kind of feel she didn't want to burden the family, which I wish she did. So we never discussed it. But towards the fourth year before I took over her life, in a way, she started having really bad stiffness in her left arm. And we went to dinner, and she couldn't even, cut her food. So that's when I noticed we had to get more involved and read about it. But kept searching for a cure, and we tried everything. Like I can't say I regret anything except the only funny thing I wish we had technology like today where we could do shows. I would have dreamed to go back and have a show with my mother, but not about Parkinson's, just about my life and hers. Because now I do have still a father and her sister, but I feel like a lot of the childhood I had is not going to be remembered and forgotten. But through these stories and the incredible work you do, our journeys and people live on forever. And I think that's amazing. And, that changes the world for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly does.
Hmm.
And back to this important legacy piece of really even the purpose of this podcast to bring people together who have different experiences and different beliefs by sharing stories. I mean, that's how we've passed down knowledge and connection over generations for who knows how many years of keeping people's memories alive, keeping information alive. And even from my side, you'd shared with your mom, you wish that there were different parts of having awareness at that early time. And even with my grandfather's Parkinson's, there was still not nearly as much information out there as there is now, which is so incredible for people who are living with it now to have access to that information. And it's been so fascinating to see the transformation of knowledge with the more understanding, the more science that comes out, the more technology that comes out, the more innovations and treatments and interventions that come is truly amazing. And I'm so grateful for the people who are experiencing it now. Even though, it was a different experience for my grandfather because of the time and the state of technology for where he was. And I believe that's part of my choice of contributing is staying connected to that Parkinson's community in a way and making sure that it is a conversation that's had when I notice things in people and to help raise that awareness the best that I can.
I appreciate it. The hardest part is really, your show is amazing because you have some knowledge of it a lot. But I've done 100 shows of other people. And in my goal, I'm sure you're aware, but finally the first law in U.S. history passed just a few months ago called the National Plan to End Parkinson's. I'm kind of shocked. I'm shocked a lot on the show, but that was the first law, ever in history to help people. I mean, it's really sad in a way, but that was passed. So I went on 100 shows literally day and night, completely voluntary, just to be able to reach people who do not have Parkinson's and people who are not caregivers. Because I feel if we don't get everybody involved, then we'll never be closer to a cure. So thankfully it did pass. I represented my little area, South Florida, and I had the honor to speak to our representative on their behalf and have it all up on our website. And I had interviewed our U.S. Senator for the plan, but it's very important. Now it'll be interesting to see how it's implemented, but still, nothing, it's never enough till we have the cure, but there are a lot more advances in the last 10 years since both of our loved ones unfortunately passed. I wish they were here to see that. So in a way, it's like I heard the news and so excited, but in a way sad, because they didn't get to also see it. But it's, that's what it is. We have to keep on keeping on.
And so for people who are listening now that can resonate at all to any of your experiences or, being a care partner to a loved one who has any kind of a condition or living with any kind of disease, how can your story build connection for people who have those similar experiences to yours?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a conduit of a pillar and a voice of so many. Again, I've interviewed 1,000 people and then 200 on the podcast and we do a lot of events like with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Parkinson's Foundation, the American Parkinson's Disease Association. So, and I don't know how, but the other day I was just putting a little thing together and we have, I use all the social media. We probably have like a lot of people. And I do have statistics on our website. I thought when we put it up, we would have 3 or 4 people, and I would have been happy with that. We've had over 40,000 people visit, and in a way I'm excited, but in a way I'm not. I'm not sure if it's the advocacy or that the disease is growing rapidly throughout the world, and it's an interesting inner struggle, and that's why I think you can go about your day and live your life, which many of us try our best to do, but things come up and life happens, and you have to be able to change with it and never run from it. My mother I've heard horror stories from even the nurses who came to help us they like looked at me like I'm some kind of someone you should worship, but because I care, I love my mother. She's my best friend, and I always said I need that shirt that says I'm proud to be a mama's boy. But we spoke 10 times a day, but I was surprised that she said, "Well, did you know most of the kids put their moms and fathers in the home, and that's the end of it?" I'm like, I couldn't even dream of that. We fought to the last minute, and we never let her go out of her own home. She actually was supposed to move in with us, which I don't think would have been good because it's just at that point I'm not qualified to deal with it. But I swore to her we wouldn't, and we never did. And the last year was very, very tough. In Florida, they just started a long-term hospice, so she was in for a year, and it was for me it was heartbreaking, every single day because we were told you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So in my brain, that means she could have lived till 80 and 90, but she didn't, and she had no other medical issues. So it was very odd time even today because I'm not sure what happened, why it progressed, and why she's not here still by my side. So it's a constant struggle still today for me. And I like writing only because it helps me tell my story. The last year of my mother's life, actually, if your viewers, this is our book, A Son's Journey. And last year of my life, I kept a journal, literally day and time stamped of her last year, all the calls, conversations between my mother and I. And it's in the book. I couldn't really say it because some of them are still tough to talk about. But the one thing I am proud of is that in the cover, if you can see the viewers, but my mother and me, and it's actually the photo for my wedding, and that was one of my favorite moments in my life. Because at that moment, I mean, she was always beautiful, but she was dressed up. She was shining, we were smiling and laughing, and those few moments we were dancing to Barry Manilow, which was her favorite. But I Am Your Son. As a kid, they tortured me with Barry Manilow and Lionel Richie and Michael Bolton, and now I love them all. But in those 3 minutes, you can Parkinson's might take your loved one, but they can never take those memories ever from me.
And then also to stick with anyone who can resonate to anything you're sharing is, what might you say to a past version of yourself?
Yeah, first is something I kind of shifted to is I cover stories and journeys now of everybody with any disease, not just Parkinson's. Obviously, that affected me and my family, but I want to cure for everything. So we actually highlighted for cancer awareness, ALS, dementia, Alzheimer's. It's all, we might be different caregivers, but we're really all the same. Although the disease differs, caregiving seems to still be similar to most of us. Number one, the rule, which I don't follow, so I'm a hypocrite, is you have to take care of yourself first or you're no good to your loved one. I don't do it as a caregiver or advocate, but I have my own reasons. And one as a caregiver was I just didn't know how much time we had, and I didn't want to, miss an hour even trying to be there. But my mother was very worried due to the also late onset dementia, hallucinations. So she thought people were harming her 24/7. When I was next to her, she felt safe. So that was important to me. And then second is as an advocate, I don't follow the rule because some days I feel like a Mack or monster truck drive over me. And it's because I'll do 10 shows or 20 million things. Then realize I still have my own work to do in my family. And some days I don't see my own children, but it's just something that, a piece of me, I think, is gone since my mother passed. And I hope this continues on beyond me too. I don't know if, I hope we have a cure so we don't have to, but I often think, should my daughter or sons keep this going? And then again, I think I hope they don't have to because I hope we cure it before that.
And what do you feel like you want or need or even needed to feel most connected to the people around you?
I think, for family, just them being there for me, like my wife and my 3 children have been amazing. But the days that, my mother's favorite time is blowing bubbles with her grandkids in the backyard. So now many days I walk by the backyard and that, I don't see it anymore, which is heartbreaking. But for others out there, when I share their story like you're doing with me, makes me feel good and helps me cope because I'm still grieving. Because, my mother continues to live on through them and now their stories are shared. Just the other day, I've interviewed several 8 people, 7 or 8, and I've actually been concentrating a lot on females with Parkinson's because there's not enough awareness issues like pregnancy and Parkinson's, menstruation, things that obviously I'm a man, but they're so important. You mentioned earlier the misconceptions, everyone thinks Parkinson's disease is an elderly man, white male, but that's not true anymore. We have young onset, so people from 20s, 30s are getting it, and it's different, and obviously it's horrible for elderly and for young, but imagine you or me or I were young. It's different because you're still raising your family, you're still trying to make a living. When you retire, it's horrible still, but you have a little bit less burden because if it's your grandkids, it's obviously not your full main responsibility. So a lot of people losing their careers, their lives due to this disease, and just want everyone to be aware. And the great thing is we're all in this together, even through the political wackiness of the world. There's no one is against a cure for Parkinson's, which is the only thing I've ever seen everybody all come together and agree on. It passed unanimously, and it was a beautiful thing. And again, even everyone listening, just to get involved takes like a second. All you have to do is just follow me on social media, or with one little click and done. You're actually involved now. Or call your local congresswoman and man. We just heard that the Environmental Protection Agency yesterday, I believe, finally banned a very dangerous chemical which is used in our laundry, in our clothing, in our shopping centers, on our pesticides and bug spray. All these things have been linked to why individuals get Parkinson's and other diseases. So that's only because everyone, all of you, contacted your legislators, and if we all did, flood of them, they would make change. If only me, like I've reached out to the media 15 times and 15 chances and never get a response, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad because it's like, this is important. And my mother matters and her voice still counts and mine does too. But I do have one concern, and that's for another show. But I don't have Parkinson's today, and I'm no longer a caregiver of someone living with it. There's a world of people, and I feel like 50, 60 million, like you, who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's, and often I don't feel that we have a seat at the conversation, and it's sad. A lot of time, these organizations, who I do love, they're obviously busy supporting those diagnosed and their families, but after your loved one passes, and you might just realize it now, but there's really nothing for people like us, and I feel that we all need to stick together and still be there, because if we brought all these 15 million back or whatever it is, I think we already would have had a cure. But there's not much. Usually, if your loved one passes, maybe for any reason, the door closes and that person has to get back to life. I don't have any problem with that, but there are many who don't want to do that and want to end it, so others don't have to go through it. But I'm not seeing the awareness or even a little segment of population to remember all those. And that's what I'm trying to do at TogetherForSharon.com, where we even have a little section totally free, and it's called In Memory. And I have my journey there, but we share people, and hopefully you'll do it one day. It's just all through email, but I share a photo of you and your loved one and a little bit of few interview, like a little few questions, but their memory I hope will live on forever.
And then last but certainly not least is, how can your story or stories build connection for people who have different experiences and different beliefs?
I actually often ask that in my written interviews. I say, why should people care about this? But likely someone, and I was shocked. I'm not involved as much with politics I used to be. And I went to an event recently, and it was people who we see on TV there. And I told them I was there really to talk about Parkinson's and my mother. I figured no one would listen, but I was shocked. Like I'd say 90% of the people I mentioned it to said they had a relative or family or neighbor affected by Parkinson's. So if you don't know it and maybe don't have time, it's likely you're going to meet someone who has it, a family, a friend, a neighbor, a mailman, supermarket worker. And I think knowing is power, and being kind to others. They always say, we're sitting here now, we might look good, especially you. Not me. I had like 4 surgeries lately. You can't tell. I'm wearing a back brace as we speak, but you can't see the inside of someone, so they might be smiling, having a good day, but you really don't know what they've been through or what they're going through. I have a little statement or quote or a little something I like to say at the end of every show. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with your amazing guest, Gabriella, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. I kind of joke and just say I'm just getting started, because even though I've been doing it for many years, when I kind of feel down or like I just don't have anything left or my face is like burning hot from stress, I think of people like you and those out there battling Parkinson's and your father and your family, and it kind of picks me up and makes me want to keep fighting for a cure. So again, I won't ever stop till it's at all our doorsteps around the world.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time and your vulnerability and your advocacy and everything that you invested, not only here on the show today, but in advocating for the Parkinson's community in general, and putting so much commitment into that. So for anyone who maybe doesn't know much about Parkinson's or is aware of Parkinson's, I'm going to include links in the show notes for different Parkinson's organizations at the national level. I worked with the Phinney Foundation for Parkinson's. The focus is on how to live well today. So focusing on that wellness right now. And for people living with Parkinson's, care partners, loved ones, other supportive community members, wellness professionals, children of people with Parkinson's. There's resources on that. As you've mentioned, like Parkinson's Foundation, Michael J. Fox Foundation, and so many more. So please take a look in the show notes to learn more about Parkinson's, or if you are living with Parkinson's or know someone living with Parkinson's, also take a look at those resources. There's a lot out there, a lot more than people I think typically are aware of. So that's a really wonderful set of resources to take a look at. And we are certainly here as resources as well. So thank you again so much for your time. And I look forward to staying connected. And I will certainly share my bit in memory of my grandfather. So thank you.
I really appreciate it, and I look forward to doing more together. And, I'm always here if anyone out there ever feels alone, because you're not. And people be like, there are people like both of us out there still advocating for them until the cure is out of our door.
Wow, what a tremendous conversation that was. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope you were able to find just as many nuggets of wisdom as well as actionable steps to create connection in the spaces all around you. This is an extremely grassroots production, so thank you to my dear friend Rowan for their commitment to this work in supporting leading fantastic conversations on Patreon and so much more. So be sure to join that Patreon community to enjoy the additional content. And thank you so much to my sweet and talented husband, DJ, for editing the audio and creating the music that is used in this podcast. And of course, it almost feels like it goes without saying thank you to every single listener. Thank you to every single guest who has committed their time and energy to support what I feel is such important work in bringing people together and creating connection.